Welcome back to episode 9 of the Real Estate Den. Today I have Nicole Farr from California with Eden and Carrie out from Florida. And why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us sort of what you do in the industry and a little bit of your background. And Carrie, remind me of your company again out of Florida. We'll start with you.
Yeah, so my name is Carrie Casey. I'm a mortgage broker with Aptly Home Loans, and um, I focus on entrepreneurs and first-time home buyers. And I really got into the space because it was such a confusing process, and I thought the 4 or 5 lenders I spoke with just didn't do a very good job in educating me. And so I spend a lot of time educating my clients on the process so they're clear and they're confident when moving forward in purchasing.
Great. Nicole, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you
Sure. I'm from Southern California. I'm the co-founder of an organization called Eden, which is a nonprofit that uses real estate to create ongoing revenue streams for anti-trafficking organizations.
you explain a little bit more into that? Because you hear that and you're like, okay, like a little bit, like like what are you doing? Are you buying nonprofits rental properties and turning them into landlords? Are the nonprofits managing them? Can you kind of explain a little bit about this awesome process that you're using real estate to fund nonprofits?
Sure. So I think most of us are familiar with the traditional giving model, and that is, for example, if somebody is thirsty, your donation would go to provide that person a glass of water, for example. Unfortunately, the next day, they would still be in need of water. And so what we want to do with Eden is do the hard work of, building, digging that well that's going to create that ongoing resource. And what that looks like is 100% of your donations would either go to the purchase or rehab of a rental property. And then that property is fixed up, rented out, and all the cash flow from that rental property would help support anti-trafficking organizations and allow them to put more of their efforts on the task at hand rather than fundraising, because unfortunately, a great deal of their efforts are around fundraising.
Awesome. Cool. So I'm very excited to have you on. You had reached out and said, can I be, is this something that sort of fits? And I think it does because I can't think of anything better to put your money in than real estate. And both of our guests today obviously are very pro real estate. Carrie will give you money in a lot of places to buy real estate. And Nicole's using this sort of investment piece. Why will you tell us a little bit about how you got started and just kind of like what led you into creating this sort of idea?
Sure. So we actually got started just a few years ago, right before COVID. So it was a little bit of a rocky start. But my husband and two of our friends had a trip to Pattaya, Thailand. I wasn't able to go, unfortunately, because I was pregnant at the time, in my third trimester. But they went to a place called Pattaya, Thailand, which is unfortunately known as the sex trafficking capital of the world. And while they were there working with an organization called Sheer Love International, they were just really overwhelmed by the severity of trafficking and just seeing it firsthand and experiencing it in a different way. I mean, I believe a lot of us are becoming more familiar with trafficking. You're hearing a lot about it, but there's this feeling of, what can I do? How much are my efforts really going to affect change? And so they came back after having a really like transformational experience, feeling like they needed to do more. And I was having a similar transformation while here in the States. And I went to go hear Diana Bautista, who is the founder of Sheer Love International, speak. And unfortunately, it was like a heart wrenching experience. But it was also just a challenging experience. She shared a story about being in Thailand and seeing an underage boy being trafficked, right next to a police officer. And it is illegal in Thailand, but oftentimes it's just you turn away from it. And so she did what she thought she could and went and reported the situation, but she was just really feeling defeated. She came home and she was talking with her brother and, sharing the story and telling him how she'd done all she could and she had taken it to the authorities. And rather than just being with her in that moment and, consoling her, he challenged her and he said, "You're a grown woman, do something." And she was just really taken aback by that because she, at that moment, she had thought she had done everything that she could. And really, she was saying like, "I'm a hairdresser from California. What can I do? How am I supposed to change change the world?" Right. But thank God she didn't stop there. And she ends up taking her skill that she has, going to Thailand, moving to Thailand. And she says, "Okay, I'm going to teach barbering and I'm going to teach cosmetology, what I know. And I'm going to give these people a trade, an opportunity to step out of a life of selling themselves." And, just the severity of exploitation that goes on over there. I mean, it's very different than here in the States. Um, Oftentimes they are doing this type of work because without it, they don't eat and their family doesn't eat, or, they're not able to get medical care. So, I mean, there's just real severity there. But she ends up starting this organization. She's telling this story, and I'm sitting there. And at that time, me and my husband, we're already donating monthly to anti-trafficking organizations, as well as a number of other organizations, which I think a lot of people out there are doing something similar. But when she shared that story about, she thought she had done all that she could, I was just like hit, I'm starting to, my eyes are welling up and I'm going, "Okay, God, what on earth do you want me to do? What do I have to offer? What are my fish?" And my husband comes home and we're brainstorming and we're like, "Okay, can we give more monthly? What can we do? How can we like make a bigger dent in this huge problem?" And he starts talking about, "Well, I mean, honestly, we could move to Thailand if we wanted to right now and not worry about our finances because of real estate." And that's when it clicked. And we were like, wow, what we need to like bring this tool, this like oil well, this like ongoing resource and like help these organizations. One other quick story I just wanted to share was one of our friends who was there. Again, Diana Batista, she's done all this beautiful thing. She's getting men and women out of this industry on a semester basis, right? She's bringing them out. And then our friend says, "Oh, I didn't know you lived in the school." And she says, "Oh, well, some of my donors fell through, and so I lost my apartment in Thailand, where it's like, $500 to rent an apartment or less. And so I moved into the school, so I'm just here right now." And we are like, this is not sustainable. She is doing so much work, beautiful work. She's bringing these men and women out of trafficking, and she can't even afford an apartment. So that's where we were like, this needs to continue. We need to keep this organization going and not just surviving, but thriving. And so that's really what kickstarted us
I
in
love
developing it.
I love how you like I feel like having that entrepreneur, your nonprofit is fueled by entrepreneurs, and I just like love that, because like real estate investing and businesses and like that's something that that is I think just so essential to a lot of the nonprofit world. I used to do some networking in some in the senior living space, and there's usually nonprofits and then there's the for-profit businesses, and there's um the ones that did the best, I think, are the ones that sort of married the two, had a board of very entrepreneurial people, or so I think, yeah, that's awesome. What, because Carrie also specializes in helping entrepreneurs get into homes and with their funding and finances and lending. What are some things that an entrepreneur needs from their lender that sort of a traditional W-2 doesn't?
So I think the biggest challenge of being an entrepreneur is how you file your taxes. So that's the only way to really track your income. And this is a great time of year to be thinking about it because, we're in tax season. You're gathering all those things right now. But one of the main benefits of being an entrepreneur is being able to write a lot of things off of your taxes. and it's a great benefit, but the government wants to see that you are paying taxes in order to give you the loan that you need to buy the house.
Right.
So it can sometimes be a catch-22 for, you know, business owners that want to get into home ownership.
Hmm.
So
What do you
yeah, so
what do you recommend that they do? That they connect with you before tax season comes up? Like, is now a good time if you're in the self-employed space to be sort of thinking about this?
absolutely. Now is a great time. I always tell my clients, like, hey, you know, whether you do your taxes yourself or if you have a CPA, like, don't file until I look at it. And I mean, a well-qualified CPA is gonna, like, you need to tell them that, hey, I'm trying to buy a house this year, that I need to be able to qualify for it. So the CPA should do it, but it doesn't always work out that way. So I always like to take a look at it before you hit file or before you hit send. That way we can make sure the numbers work and that you're able to afford the house that you want to afford.
Well, and now
So
if you're talking with your CPA and you're talking with your lender and your team with this, you know, in that self-employed space, you know, if you need to be sometimes, you know, any because I think now is a good time to be donating, right? If you're looking at your taxes and if you need to get some write-offs, this would be a good time to get in touch with you as well. So did you also have a background in as an entrepreneur as well? You said you had invested in real estate. What did you invested in personally before that was that you had wanted to replicate? Was it just regular rentals or?
So a little bit of what ignited us around real estate for this nonprofit idea was a few years prior, about 3 or 4 years prior. I was in the 9 to 5 business world, in the personal care industry, and I was traveling a lot. I was working a lot, and then I got pregnant. And I don't know about you, but a lot of us women, when we get pregnant, there's something that just happens, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna change things. I'm gonna be like raising my kids. I want to be the voice into them. And the clock was like literally ticking, and I felt stuck. I felt like all the women I knew, they were selling oils, which is great, but I was like, there are not enough oils that I could sell to compensate the money that I bring in. So I need to find something else. And so I was like searching for work from home opportunities. I was desperate. And then when I found real estate, I was like, okay, this really seems like an opportunity, minimal time investment, maximum return. And that's what drove me. It was out of desperation. And a lot of times, desperation like feeds into opportunity. And so now I'm just addicted. And now I can't stop talking about it. And so that's really what got me excited when we found that connection between something I already loved to do and I already felt confident in, and then the nonprofit helping anti-trafficking. It was like, wow, my skill actually can meet this need. And so I feel like there's a lot of people out there that have various different skills, like even in real estate. And when you realize like, oh, I have something to bring to the table, it mind shifts happen.
Absolutely. Carrie, tell us a little bit about your background, and your daughter is also, you've got a young daughter, and I know you made some pretty big changes in your business as well.
so I have two kiddos. I have one that's 15 and I have a 2-year-old. So the dynamic is phenomenal. But it's also interesting. I mean, when I found out I was pregnant, I was fairly new into lending, maybe a year and a half in, and it's not it's very similar to the real estate side. Like, it takes a while to really like get your reps in and get comfortable. And so when I found out when I was pregnant, it was the same thing. Like, you felt like a ticking time clock. Like, I'm gonna my goal was to continue on and still, be a present part of this baby's life. So, um, I started to work on my relationships a bit more. And I know at the time, Megan, you and I, back when I lived in Colorado, we're trying to start like a mom's organization where it was focused on real estate and moms and just offering that type of support so we could continue to do our jobs. And I know when I moved to Florida, I was like, I think this is something that's still needed. I still feel a strong need for that. So I think it's in the future. I think the 2-year-old is more challenging than the baby stage. Um, so we'll get there. But I mean, I do have help, but she comes to my house. Like you know, I haven't wanted her to go off to daycare or anything like that because my job, I feel like I take like you don't really have days off, but I think you have times off, and in those times off, it's not your normal 9 to 5 job. So like I want her to be home when I can, focus on her. So, and that's early in the morning, and that's lunchtime, and that's, walking to the park and meeting her there. And so, it's nice to have that flexibility.
Absolutely. I love that. I'm also, because I'm expecting my second in April. So that's why I keep sneaking bites here and there, because I'm like so hungry. It's that time. Um, but yeah, I mean, I wrote down, how has being a mother helped you grow like in your business? Because I think yeah, I guess I didn't realize, I thought you had a couple more years before you had your daughter. So that's really cool, because you've been able to grow your lending business alongside your daughter. Nicole, share a little bit about, your kiddo kind of alongside you in this real estate journey. Let's talk about how that,
Sure.
how being a mother has helped you grow. You think, if because I think we do things differently now than if we hadn't have had, the baby. Now we obviously go through this massive change between pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. And yeah, share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I have 3 actually. I have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And so, I'm also a homeschool mom, so, that's been its own journey. Um, I mean, honestly, it makes you like, brings you back to your why more frequently than not, because as you were saying, Carrie, I mean, as an entrepreneur, I mean, you don't really have scheduled times off. It's like you're working all the way to the evening and all the way in the morning. And so I often have to like stop myself, recalibrate, and be like, no, I'm going to spend this hour reading with them on my lap. And like just remember that this is what it's all about. It's not a distraction. It's not, an inconvenience. This is the why. And so, like even today, this morning, getting ready for podcasts and doing other work on the side, it was like, no, I'm gonna just like, I honestly, I pray beforehand, and I'm like, okay, Lord, help me to remember and to just absorb these endorphins that you're giving me by cuddles right now in this moment, and just like enjoy the now. Yeah, the
It gets you
moment.
to be very more intentional with your time, you know.
Yes.
And especially I think in your work, seeing kids in that, like, or trying to avoid the
Mhm.
trafficking, when you're a mother too and you see stuff like that, you're like, that's your why, and so I think that's amazing.
I
I'm
love
Very
sure
true.
that really keeps you going.
Mhm. And yet, like you said, efficiency, it really does drive efficiency. One of the things that we do is we invest out of state, which a lot of people, have been uncomfortable with that. Now I think it's becoming much more common because we're so used to doing Zooms and using our phones and technology, that out of state investing is much more common. But that was like one of the things that at least created like a wall, a barrier between you and the property, because you're not the one going over there. So you're going to have to create systems. You're going to have to create, you know, it just efficiencies that you might not have done if you walk over there and check it out yourself, or go to um, every property that you're looking at. I mean, all the properties we've purchased were sight unseen, We purchased them just barely this last fall did we ever see any of our properties. And so I think that really helps sometimes to create those like boundaries for your family and your work life and your side jobs, all of those things.
Awesome. Carrie, what do you think about how has becoming a mother helped you grow in your business?
Focus, honestly. And sometimes I do feel very unfocused, but again, it's like I don't have all the time in the world and I don't want to spend it all day working. And I don't want to say it's balance, but it's trying to like unify the two. So for me, I love working with other moms. So real estate partners, like when I find out, I'm like, oh, you have littles too? Like we're gonna be best friends. So and it's because like we get it. And we know that there's a juggle, and if a kiddo has to stay home from daycare, then I know like we'll just come over. Like it's not that big of a deal. Um, or it's just there's just a lot more like give, and it's a lot easier to work with other moms who just get it, because I don't think other real estate partners necessarily do. It's very much like all the networking events. You can't really, it's not really a kid friendly environment. So I think that's why I like working with women the most. And of course, I work with a few men too, but typically everyone's a parent. And I think that's like I switched to Aptly this past year, which is a Florida based company. I was with a Colorado based company. And I love that the majority of people I work with are also parents. And I think that makes the work environment a lot different.
I totally agree. We have a very funny, like just overall cultural sense of where children belong, and it's not in business apparently, which is weird because we're all a bunch of former children. So I don't know how we're supposed to learn if we're not supposed to be around it. I brought my husband and I went to a class a couple months ago, and we brought our daughter, who was like 12 months at the time, and the guy looks at me and goes, "You're not coming in here," because he was shocked that we were coming in with the baby into class. And she does fine. Like we've been taking her with us for a while, but that's why I do it, is because I'm like I manage the brokerage. My husband does sales. So we don't need to have we don't have a nanny either. We just moved, but like we don't really need to have one just yet, because like our face to face is enough for us to like bounce her off of us. You know what I mean? Like as long as one of us is in there taking notes, we're fine. But yeah, I love that. And yeah, Carrie and I did a few mom networking things. Those were the best. They were awesome because we had a bunch of women who were just so in their element because they were close to their children. And you kind of feel split, when you have like these two identities, because you're like, oh my God, I'm a mom now. I have to focus on my daughter and my children. But to be able to do them both simultaneously is like awesome. So I applaud both of you. This is the motherhood episode. I can like just awesome, wonderful women building their businesses with their littles. That's great. And between the two of you, we have like the spread, right? Like we've got 2 to 15 now. And then you said 3, 4, and 8, 3, 5, and 8?
8, 4, and 5. Yep.
5. Yeah. I mean, like that's like a litter of children. Like that would be like, that's like a mom, you could take down the world with that span of kids, like just
Right.
Well, awesome. I could talk with you ladies all day. I have a couple more questions. The first one is, what does your morning typically look like? Do you guys have any sort of routines or anything that you do on a typical morning? And then tell our listeners where they can find you to connect with you, to learn more about you, what you do, or ask any questions about what they've heard today. We'll start with Carrie and go back to Nicole.
So I'm usually up by 5, and I try to get a workout in, or I'm reading. So sometimes it's just based on what I feel like doing, or like because I don't get a lot of time, especially right now. We recently switched to a big girl bed for my 2-year-old, and she realized she could get out of it. So,
Can't be tamed, can't be fenced in.
I can
Yeah.
relate to that. I went
So
through that.
Yep. So she would usually stay in her crib till 8, and it's like she slept great. And then it gradually, like when we switched her, gradually she got up earlier and earlier, and I was like, oh, this is my time that you're creeping into. So now she's up usually around 6, so I get about an hour. And my husband and I were both like, well, we'll just trade off. And so he'll go work out, or, you know, I have been contemplating throwing her in the jogging stroller and running with her. I don't know how long she'll last these days, but yeah, I feel like the morning it's a toss up, but typically I'm up at 5 to get things started, and I always want to focus on something for myself, and that is between exercise and reading. So, and then, you know, from the older kid goes to school at 7, and 8 we are making breakfast, and 9 my nanny arrives, and yeah, then work starts, and it's kind of from there.
Nice. Where can our listeners find you if they have any questions, or especially all the entrepreneurs who are ready to buy a house this year? Where can they get a hold of you?
So you can typically find me on my Instagram page at CarrieCasey_home. That's the best place where I spend most of my time.
Awesome. All right, Nicole, tell us about your morning and where our listeners can find you for more information.
Sure. So, my husband wakes up at 5:30 to go work out. Unfortunately, I haven't taken that one on my plate yet. But I wake up, I start work at 6, so I do have a W-2 job as well that I work from home. My children, uh, so first I'll wake up, and I actually have a prayer app that I use, and I would love to recommend it. It's Lectio. And it just has like a little bit of scripture, a little bit of prayer, recentering on your why, of course. And then depending on my oldest one, he is an early riser. So we've given the rule that they can't wake up until 7, but he's always sneaking out probably around 6:45 or earlier, depending on how bold he is. So sometimes he joins me in that prayer time. By 7, they're definitely saying they're starving. They've never had this experience before in their life. So we do a little breakfast time. And then they start their schoolwork. I mean, honestly, as a homeschool mom, it's been challenging because I think as an entrepreneur, a businesswoman, you're just like, oh, this is how you schedule things. And homeschool is not like that. Like these little people, they need to run, they need to play, they need to giggle. So I would love for it to be so routine. It is not.
Right.
But by 4 o'clock, they at least got all their stuff done usually. So yeah, so taking breaks throughout the day to make sure to read, to giggle, and to just even allow them to make the food. Sometimes it feels so inefficient as a mom and a businesswoman to be like, "Oh yeah, you want to make the tuna fish today? I could probably do it in
I've
5
got
minutes."
45 minutes for this.
25.
That's
Yeah. Right. But I mean, it's all part of it. So really, there's like this recentering that happens all the time for me. Like I'm like, okay, pull back, pull back. Let it happen. You know, let them pour the rice and it'll be on the floor until 8 p.m. But that's okay. It's okay. So that's the joy of it. Also, you know, we're kind of we pack it in. So we also have like Thursday nights we have small group. So we've got like 15 kids at our house on those nights. And usually we end the night outside of Thursday nights with a prayer time with our kids as well.
Oh, I love that. So you have a morning and a sort of night routine, sort of to open and end the day. And that's what they say. I ask about mornings. I should probably ask about evenings too, to be fair, but I haven't. Where can our listeners find you if they have questions, want to donate, want to partner up with you? Maybe do you need to connect with other nonprofits as well?
Yes, so we're really trying to raise some funds for our latest property. It's a home that we're still rehabbing. So we've got the roof done, but we need some exterior work and interior work so that we can get it rented and producing to help support our first US based organization called Oasis House out of Ohio. And so, if you are interested in partnering with us and allowing your donation to have greater impact and not just be a one-time donation, but an ongoing revenue stream that it'll create for you, we'd love for you to go to our website. It is restoringedentogether.com. You can also find us on social media. We love the follows and the likes and the shares because we know that the more you guys are excited about what we're doing, the more that others will be able to join in.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for joining us today. We will see you guys on the next episode, and have a good one.